Where do we see school segregation? Everywhere. Why do we worry about school segregation? Because without school segregation, a lot of the inequalities, disparities that we see and worry about wouldn't be possible. So it's still worth looking at this subject, and today I'll describe some descriptive work. When scholars of whatever discipline look at school segregation these days, they mean imbalance. So what you could see in our paper is that we're trying to take the concept of imbalance from schools to within schools. Imagine a simple district with 3 schools, and each school has 3 classrooms. Here's a picture of it. This is a balanced school where we have 2 groups, W and X, and each classroom in every school has the same racial composition, balanced. Here's an imbalanced school district. The people that have looked at between school segregation have to assume something like this is going on because they don't have any information on what's happening within the schools. But the reality is going to be something more like this. So our objective here is simply to measure the within as well as the between school data. The data now is information from the state of North Carolina. We are looking at data based on a census of every single classroom in every single school in every single district in 2013, and went out, and one of the things that you find out is the racial composition of each classroom. We'll be looking at 2 dichotomies, white and black and white and Hispanic, and be treating them separately as is the custom in this kind of research. This is the kind of data that we are dealing with, is data that's going to give by school, by section, the number of students in each of these groups. It's necessary to boil this down and say for each school, what were the classrooms? So we allowed ourselves the flexibility of letting some districts define their 4th and 7th grades differently than others. We look at 4th grade, 7th grade English and math, and 10th grade English and math. Here's an example. If you look at the first 3 lines, this is what we ended up finding for the 4th grade in North Carolina. About half of the 4th grades had something called self-contained classrooms, but the other half didn't organize their schools that way. So we had to have a system that allowed us to be flexible in that way. And the same thing goes for the higher grades, but look at the bottom part of this page. You see there are 9 different 10th grade math courses that had at least 1% of the whole state's population. So we had to be flexible within each school to say, what are your classrooms? Now, the next slide violates Dan's rule, and Cassie and I are violators, but I'll just skip over it. What our idea here is to separate the segregation in a school, in a district, and here, I'm sorry, take away district. Our unit is counties, which is in North Carolina almost the same thing. So everything is within a county. We want to separate the total segregation in a county between school and within school. And the way we do it is a 3-step process. First, we calculate between school segregation the way it's always done. We use a dissimilarity index, say between whites and blacks, and it's an index that goes from 0 to 1. The higher the number, the more segregated. Second step is to go back and use the data now that we have on every classroom and do it again. That's going to be a more segregated number because there's more differentiation. Then we take the difference between those two and you have the within. So now I'm just going to show you some results. One more thing about the data. It turns out that the dissimilarity index, everybody's friend in sociology for many years, turns out to be very unreliable when you have a very small percentage of the minority group. It does crazy things. So what we've done in this case is we just dropped all the counties with less than 5% either Black or Hispanic, and as a case may be. So this is what it looks like at the fourth grade level. You see at the fourth grade level, the dark blue, which is the between school segregation, is much bigger than the within. What does that mean? That means that within elementary schools in North Carolina, there's just not that much variation across the classrooms in a school. But if you go to 10th grade, man, you see a lot more within school segregation. This is 10th grade math. So that's one of the regularities of what we find. A couple more things. The top three are white, Black in 3 different years. The bottom 2 are white, Hispanic in only 2 years, because the appearance of Hispanic students in the state, it's been pretty recent. The white Hispanic numbers are bigger than the white Black numbers. And that's one of the consistencies that we come up with. Now, let me give you a little bit of information across districts. Now, you may not care about many of the districts in North Carolina, but everybody cares about the top 2. Because the top 2 has been a little bit of a morality play. Wake County has been the darling of integration supporters. They've balanced their schools by SES, and therefore they've been very balanced by race. In our previous work, we've said, look at Wake County. It's great. The Black Knight, or the Prince of Darkness, has been Mecklenburg, Charlotte Mecklenburg, because after federal courts came in and said, you can't assign by race, they said, okay, we're going to go to neighborhood schools. And so we've shown a real jump over before and after 2002. Well, you can see on the left-hand side, there was a jump. No, you can't see the jump. Just take my word for it. But you do see that MEC is bigger than Wake. And it's bigger on both sides, white, Black, and white, Hispanic. Okay, standard issue. Yeah, just it goes with the story. But now let me jump all the way to 10th grade math. Now look, Wake was actually more segregated in white, Black than Mecklenburg. Why? Because Wake County, while it was doing this wonderful thing between schools, was having more segregation within schools. And so one of the messages we're going to come up with is, if possible, pay attention to within school segregation. Actually, the winner in many of these dubious competitions is Forsyth County, where Winston-Salem is. In my 3 minutes and 30 seconds, let me say 2 more things that we've done. One thing, there's some literature that looks at individual schools and says that the more ethnically or racially diverse the individual school is, the more segregation there will be within the school. Why? Because maybe powerful parents want to protect their children, and so there's more tracking. So we looked at that question because we had data on individual classrooms. The answer, looks like this. If you'll kind of put your hand mentally over the lowest percentages, you'll see that there's an upward slope where on the x-axis, let's take the left one, percent Black in the school, and on the y-axis, how segregated. If you look above, say, 30% Black, you'll see it is indeed the case as a higher percentage of Black in the school, more segregated. Same thing goes for Hispanic white, starting at about 20%. Okay, last bit of descriptive information out of this is, well, since we were putting together these classrooms, we couldn't help notice what the courses were. So then you might want to ask the question, is a handmaiden of within school segregation also disproportionately different kinds of courses that are being taken by these different groups? Answer, yes. So I had a previous table like this, but now I've put on 3 more columns. And on the right, you have an index where 1 says this group took this course as much as everybody else did. Over 1, it says this group was disproportionately in this class. So in 7th grade math, you see that 3 courses were disproportionately taken by white students, and they are Accelerated Math, Algebra 1, and Local Option Common Core Math 1. You could say maybe those are more advanced classes. Let's go to 10th grade. More classes. Again, I show you these in blue are the classes disproportionately taken by white students. Look at them. Pre-calculus, advanced functions and modeling, and local option Common Core Math 3. What are the courses that are disproportionately taken by black students? Geometry, foundations of geometry, foundations of advanced algebra. For Hispanic students, it's those and a couple more. So there is something to this notion that that one of the outgrowths of segregation inside the school is different courses taken. Oh, and this is just to say, you know, it's not as simple as I've said, because every single district in every single county has a different approach to things. So there's even more opportunities for differentiation. 6 seconds. No, I've got 6 seconds to 12. Oh, I am 2 minutes ahead right now. Okay, so this is my last slide. So these are the take-homes here. The first one, and maybe the most important one, is that within school segregation is significant. Ignore this at your peril. This, of course, we have to where we don't have data on it, but this thing is going on, and in fact, it might cause us to rethink the the virtue of some counties that we think have been doing, you know, very virtuous things. Second, in the state of North Carolina, white Hispanic segregation is more severe than white black segregation. And, you know, that's kind of a doozy. You think about the history of racial relations in the whole South and North Carolina, for this kind of segregation to be more intense than white black segregation is, you know, gets the attention. 3, it seems to be the case that within schools, the more diverse the school, the smaller the percent white, the more segregated are the classrooms in the school. And 4th, that there are racial, ethnic differences in course taking. Thank you.